welcome. It's really such a pleasure to be hosting such a wonderful organization. And all of you care about it.
And in true kind of post or pandemic fashion, we have a live stream going on, so there are people tuning in from home. So that's really exciting.
You can wave hi here.
Oh yeah, oh it's right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, great. I kept looking here, but there they are. All right.
Dave's
Dave's
waving hi
waving back.
back.
Oh good. Hi Dave. So we are a hybrid event. So this is Lee and I have talked about sort of the arc of this thing over the years, and to see all the friends and family and all the incredible folks that work to make this organization reality now is just a dream. This is an organization built of lots of organizations that came together like Voltron, and it just got more and more powerful as we grew, and even through the pandemic, we within days had the team live casting and streaming materials every single day, hundreds of hours of content, and I don't know of any organization that responded as quickly and was creating continuing to create impact despite all of the situation. And we have now a really incredible opportunity. Our landlord in Gardena, those of you who've been to this magical warehouse we have down in Gardena, filled with all sorts of upcycled stuff, and the big bins where the upcycled waste go is to be able to be repurposed and sent out to schools. They've sold that building, and that building is going to be turned into a mega rise or something. And there's no room for us anymore. And so we embarked on a tour, trying to figure out where to go. Where was our new home going to be? And in poking around, ended up finding a great place that we could rent for about the same that we were paying in Gardena. And literally across the street was another spot that we could buy. And we fell in love with it. It is right in Boyle Heights, really beautiful part of East LA. And it is, with having solved the down payment, the lease, where the mortgage payments will be the same as the lease, and so we were like, gosh, is there some way that we're gonna be able to pull this off? And so we started to ask around and figure out what we could possibly do, and that led us to today. And Leah's got a presentation to share, and it's been my great honor and privilege to be able to work with her and get to know her. Anybody who's spent time with Leah knows she's absolutely incredible, kind and warm, and always just a ray of sunshine. And so I'm just so happy to welcome her to the stage.
Started that screaming right away, like within days, but it was because we were prompted by our chairman. He said, "What if we do this live stream every day?" And we're like, "What a great idea!" So we put it together and we did it. And I am really so lucky. I'm going to introduce the board members who are here as we go through the slides, because everybody came from different places, and it sort of makes sense to kind of go through this together. So let's start with first, I want to introduce you to what drives us, our mission, our vision, our best. So we serve children in all economic situations by creating learning experiences to inspire entrepreneurship, encourage young inventors, and instill environmental stewardship. Imagine a great circus tent for creative play, making, curiosity, imagination, and community, and that's us. And that last line came from Nirvan, who's here, Nirvan, I'll introduce him a bit later with the, because he came to us through imagination.org. So our next slide is the vision. And I won't read everything because I'm assuming everybody, although the first time I did that where I didn't read everything, I assumed everyone would read. Everyone came up to me after and said, "I'm legally blind," and I wasn't able to read all the slides. So if you need me to read, just raise your hand.
Can you read, please? I'm way back here with no glasses.
Oh, absolutely. We imagine a world where creativity, entrepreneurship, and environmental stewardship are core social values nurtured in schools, homes, and communities everywhere. A world where all children are empowered to be creative thinkers and doers and encouraged to make their very best ideas happen. And then our values, which I really, really love. So learning happens everywhere all the time. It's not just in formal settings. The radical niceness, building each other up, that comes from Maya Stark, who came to us through the LA Makerspace merger. And she really fought for that one because there were a couple people in the room the day we were doing our values who thought, yeah, that sounds a little. No, we're keeping it. And I'm so glad we did because it really does create an underpinning for everybody that we work with to feel that, yeah, we can do that, build each other up. Redefining failure, facing challenges with optimism and resilience. There are so many kids in this young generation who are afraid to try anything that they don't already know how to do because they're so terrified of failure. So, and the power of collective creativity, and then unleash passion, curiosity, and creativity. So that's what we try to live by every day. So this is where we all started. The first one, I'm gonna play a minute and a half of each of these videos to introduce you to each organization. The Trash for Teaching is where I first came in. They were 9 years old when I came along, and they were basically, they just gathered manufacturers' clean waste and made it available to schools. And Celeste Onloff, who is here as a board member, is the one who introduced me to the folks at Trash for Teaching. And at first I said, what made you think of me when they said trash? I got that cleared up, okay.
What year was this founded?
It was founded in 2004.
2004.
And it was 2013, so 9 years old when Celeste called. We were classmates at Antioch at the graduate school there. And she said, I was just at this place, they're looking for a new executive director. I gave them your name and I said, great, what's it called? Trash for Teaching. Really? Okay, and I went out there and I walked in the door and I would have stayed if they didn't hire me because it was just, I grew up on a farm in the middle of nowhere, and to have anything new to make a school project with was just unheard of. So you went to the barn, you went to the shed, you scrounged, you looked for things. And this was a really sophisticated version of that. We just had stuff everywhere. So let's play a couple minutes or a minute and a half of this.
Reduce, reuse, recycle. What we have here is some kits from a not-for-profit organization called Trash for Teaching in Los Angeles. What they do is collect manufacturers' overruns and discards and cast-offs. And what that means is, pretend you had a factory and you were making widgets, cookies, and you got an order for 1,000 widgets, and so you made 1,200 widgets just to be safe, because sometimes widgets fall on the floor and sometimes widgets mysteriously disappear over the weekend. And then the customer calls you back and says, we actually only need 800. So now you've got 400 widgets and you don't feed them anymore. Where do they go? Into the landfill.
Great.
So Trash for Teaching comes to the rescue and says, actually, before you throw out those widgets, clothing that you don't need, we'll take them. And we'll send them out to schools all over Southern California and other places to use in art projects and science projects. Trash, what we have here, all the widgets and clothing.
And this is Dave Noble, also a board member.
He's waving.
On the left. We're
Virtual.
gonna do that today. This one is for optics, and we are using that today. What does light do? What is light made of? How does light work? Light is magical. That's actually probably the best definition I've heard in a while. Scooter. A form of energy. Yes, Scooter. Invisible form of energy.
So that is Dave Zobel. He was in the room the day I went in for my interview, and part of the team that hired me. So I guess I hadn't told you before, Dave, that I would have stayed anyway if you guys had not hired me, but I'm glad you hired me. So, and then so I was there in 2013, in 2014, and during that whole first year, I met Brent and Eric a couple of times while we were all at different events, and they were there with this really sexy stuff, fire and like robotic stuff, and we were there with our glue guns and our trash. I always kept thinking like, gosh, we need something like 2-Bit Service has to really make this fly. And then Brent invited us to come to this first Steam Carnival in 2014.
Steam Carnival was just an idea, a late night vision in our living room.
I don't think either of us could imagine the size or the impact that it would have today.
What we did know is it was the perfect time to reimagine STEM.
To make science and engineering the new rock and roll.
he added art to the equation to create steam, tapping into interests everyone can relate to. Things like music, fashion, games. Our crazy high-tech entertainment becomes crazy, fire, igniting interest in the very steam elements we use to create them. But what came out of this mix was a never-before-seen entertainment event, fun for all ages. Get people playing, get people excited, get people asking interesting questions, get people thinking differently. That was our mission. What started out as one event turned into 5 unique events over 5 days, covering 90,000 square feet, inspiring 13,000 attendees, and reaching over 20 million people. And Carnival is more than just an event. It's a movement that transforms the way we learn through the way we play. The week opened with the VIP launch of Steam Power, the nonprofit.
Yeah. So the Steam Carnival was life-changing for every kid that went there and also for some of the adults. That's where I met Marcella Klein-Williams, who's on the board, and it has been just such a pleasure to work with you and have you involved in this. And I went to Brent after that Steam Carnival and asked him to join the board of Trash for Teaching, which he did, which I thought was such a great sport about it, because that was a tough name to work with. We got a lot of calls for when trash was gonna be picked up in their neighborhood, and it was really hard. Nobody really wanted to put the trash folks on the dais, so it was a tough name. But Brett joined, and within a very short period of time, he was elected our board president. And Dave and I went to the Steam Carnival together with one of the facilitators from our organization. And it was just like, I told Brent at the end of it that I felt like I had sat through the next iteration of Cirque du Soleil. Only instead of sitting and watching a spectacle, you are in the midst of the spectacle. You're part of it. And so we've just been, it's really been, it was a marriage made in heaven. I really feel like we brought all these great minds together, and then a few months later, well, I guess it was almost 2 years later, when Brent and Eric were thinking about starting their own nonprofit, and I said, well, what if, we already are vendors in all the schools, we're in the districts, we have a pretty good reputation, we just have a bad name. What if we change our name? And so we went to all the board members and to see who was on board, and it worked out. We changed our name, and in 2017, we got the approval of the Secretary of State's office for that to be official, and we've been very happy ever since. And then along came LA Makerspace. So Malik and Sebastian and Sid's here tonight too, who came to see us at Brent's office to talk about the possibility of putting the two organizations together. Very similar missions, very similar programs and workflow. We didn't have any overlap in our grants, and so it was a really it just made sense. It made a lot of sense. And one of the things that I have been so happy about is we inherited a staff member, Maya Stark, who is just so delightful to work with and someone that everybody wants to work with. So we have a list of potential volunteers now that we can always call on for programs and when we do another Steam Carnival and that kind of thing. So and Malik has become our board president, and Brent became the board chair, and Sebastian, where is Sebastian? Oh, there he is. Sebastian is our treasurer, and Dave, who's with us on Zoom, is our vice president and secretary. So we have a little video. This is the history, and this is Maya Stark on the history of LA Makerspace. She begged me not to show you this.
She has a wonderful sense of humor. That's for the back. That says, with apologies to Will Smith and all mankind.
Right.
I've got
Turned upside down.
Take images of this and
LA
That's as high as it goes.
Need a remote.
Africa get together and have a good time. Collaborating, researching, associating, social making robots, being so vocal. When a couple of hackers named Tara and a little hacker named Ripley was born.
They went together, they created a place. Hackers Space was called LA Makerspace. The other was pop-ups, downtown LA, their very own space where the makers can play. The market rent and the measurements, fishing with so long, it takes to fish. Streaming next. I'm Sean from my belly, because I was about sciences. Walked to the library, things to see. I was excited to help. That's living a dream.
Great. Hi, Grab.
By Grabthar's Hammer by the Sons of Warva.
A child young son that has the kids from Thomas.
Okay.
Oh, that's it.
So, and then along came imagination.org, and I'm gonna show you the first minute and a half of this, but you will never regret the 10 minutes you spend watching the full documentary. It is really, I've seen it hundreds of times. I still cry and laugh, and it's spectacular. Oh,
Whoa.
let's.
Oh, it got ahead of us.
And I'm going to share this deck with any of you who would like it. If you sign the guest book and put your email address in there, I will send it to you. With the full video.
My kids called Kings of Kings, but over song, Weekends Only.
It's open on weekends only. It's really cheap.
We're working on volume right now for you.
Tickets, playing games, get us prizes. So it was only natural for him to build his own beginning.
Oh, she's working on it right now.
Love to see how things are built. He takes all his toys apart, see how they work. Yeah, put it back together and we take some fun. Can't spend summer vacation, come to work in space. Sell out of and you sell it.
My dad had a lot of boxes back there. He shipped parts up.
Thank you, sir.
Cut them up to make my arcade games out of it. The first game I made, the last boxes I got, I shaped pizza. And
He taped it onto a box and he was offering people chances to play for like a nickel. He started from that little game and little by little they started getting fancier and fancier. And eventually he took over the whole store.
I met Kane randomly. I had to get a door handle for my 96 Corolla. I pulled into this used auto parts store and I just came across this elaborate cardboard arcade. I asked him how much it was to play. He's like, for $1 you get 4 turns, but for $2 you get a fun pass. 500 turns for
That is the best. Nirvan, which one did you do?
We got the fun pass.
So Kane is now 19. He's a junior at Cal State Dominguez Hills. And it's, he's now a junior board member with us. So we're doing some work with him and trying to help him get ready for adulthood. And I've raised one teenager, so this is just a repeat. So one teenage boy. But the really important thing to me about that video is, yes, it was wonderful. This young man made all this really elaborate arcade, but everyone walked by it all summer and no one engaged. And along came Nirvan and engaged. And if I've learned anything about Nirvan over the last few years, it's that he engages with everything. We were once walking after a conference, walking back to the hotel, and someone stopped and asked us for directions. We're in Long Beach. I didn't know anything. And Nirvan totally engaged, and it's like looking it up on his phone, and it was just like he's fully present. And I think it's such an important takeaway from that video that not only did he make the video, but he engaged with that kid for a whole morning and then went home, thought about what that kid had done, put something on Reddit that went viral right away. I mean, millions of people have watched this video. And we get calls from all over the world asking if we can put Kane on a phone call with the 3rd grade class that's about to do a cardboard arcade. And it's
It's really been wonderful. This is the joint impact of the 4 organizations. And this is from 2017. So we definitely need to update it because we've certainly done a lot more tons of material diverted, a lot more students, and we build maker spaces in schools. So we call them STEAM Lab maker spaces, and we've now built over 200 locally and 4 in Tennessee because we had a sponsor that asked us to come out there. So we built those 4 and did professional development, and our education team still work with the group in Tennessee to nurture that. But this year we've been asked to send facilitators in to actually teach the classes in those maker spaces to get the teachers up and ready to take over. And then the next slide is a little more about impact. And what I love about this is the pre and post. So this is when we work with a class or put a STEAM lab in the school, we do a pre then post survey with them, beginning and the end of the year. And
what I learned in science doesn't have much to do with the real world.
Right.
58% before agree with that.
Right.
And after, only 15%.
Exactly. Feel very good about that. And then next, this is just so when the pandemic hit and we had everything we did pre-pandemic was in person, very, face to face with the kids and the teachers. So we immediately had to, not only did we start doing those live streams of projects every day, we had to create a digital version of everything that we were working on. And we, in the end, ended up doing taking over the after school program for the Hawthorne School District. We had done a couple of STEAM carnivals for them, and we've done some professional development there. And so this is just a whole list of the kinds of things that we had to create. And this is what our revenue looked like. So when I took over, we were at like $360,000 a year gross as an organization. And we got ourselves up to the $2 million mark, and then the pandemic hit. But even though we lost all that revenue for the year, we also reduced our staff and did a lot of just freeze on all expenses. And we came out of it in pretty good shape because we had less projects, but we had less expense. But the real graph that's frightening to me is the one about the rent. So we were paying $3,600 a month when I took over 8 years ago, and this year we're paying $10,000 for the same space. And I expect it's just going to keep going in that direction. And as a nonprofit, having the ability to put some money into a place that is ours and build from there was the best case scenario for us. This is the building we identified. It is not a pretty building right now, but it is on the first street inside Boyle Heights from the Arts District. So it's a 3-minute drive to the micro amusement park. And we do a lot of professional development there and a lot of the bringing kids in on field trips. But if you go to the next slide, that shows a little more what we would do with it. And I don't know if Grant had to leave, but I wanted him to see that so Grant, who was here earlier at a commitment with his daughter's school, he was the shoe designer at Vans for 7 or 8 years. And I met, he was working for Brent doing an art project on the roof of the building. On the roof of 2-Bit Circus Corporate, the micro amusement park, there's a Google map pin. And like, you are here, the circus.
And over the pandemic, the Google Maps updated their images, and so you literally Google it now, and you will see it right there, pre-pinned on everybody's map.
And Grant was the designer who was doing it, and when I went up there, I didn't know who he was, but I walked over and I said, I love your shoes, because he had on some really beat up old checkerboards. And we were the inaugural nonprofit for their first international checkerboard day. And they gave us $1 million, which is what allowed us to make it through the pandemic and come out of it with enough to keep us going. And so what we're doing with the building is they're asking $4 million for it, and they've come up with we're working with the California Bank and Trust. They are taking 50% of the the mortgage, and they have another group that is, they're talking to about 40% of the mortgage, and we have to come up with 10% of the mortgage. So that's why we're all here. That's the idea from now is,
Oh.
is that what the last one was? Oh, no. This, oh, right, so our junior board, we use the junior board to bounce off new ideas and try new things. And America Honda Foundation has worked with us for about 5 years now and sponsored many of the STEAM carnivals. They just did this commercial, so I wanted you to see.
I don't have the commercial.
Oh, it's not there. Oh, that's, okay.
I'm sorry.
No, no worries. But it's online, and again, if you give us your email address, I will send out the deck that'll have all the videos and the commercial on it. So thank you for coming, thank you for listening, and I'm happy to try to answer any questions right now. Yes.
How many square feet is the building?
The building is 9,960 square feet. And it's really a perfect layout for us because it's very high ceilings and it's one long open. The building we're in now is about 8,000 square feet and it's all kind of broken up into different rooms. So this is a lot easier to work with. And there's 2,000 square feet at the front that is office space, two stories of office space. Yes.
So what is it that, if tonight was fantastic, how much would you like to raise tonight?
Well, we put the first $100,000 into the account today for the capital campaign, and I would love to come up with the balance of the down payment, which is $400,000. And this is a 3-year campaign. We're gonna try and raise enough to pay the building off, but that's there. And we, the seller is doing a 1031, where they have to identify another building before the sale happens. So we've been given a little bit of a grace period. They are gonna lease it to us while they get that done, and so we have some time to make this happen. Thank you for that question. I want to say another thank you to, I was at dinner with Liz and a couple of other people and talking about the building and what we were facing, and Liz said, you need to have a capital campaign kickoff party, and so that's where we are.
Something to what you just said. What is really important here is that once this building is purchased, it becomes an asset for the nonprofit. The rent will be stable. Yes, there will be maintenance and incidental costs, but there will be an appreciating value. And this is a great opportunity for Two-Bit Service Foundation. And I just really I'm so inspired by Leah. And so I very much hope tonight that we are able to really make a dent in this down payment thing.
Appreciate that. And Boyle Heights is really on the cusp of change. This is an opportunity zone. The building's in an opportunity zone. It's a part of the river revitalization area as well. And so a couple of other thank yous. Sarissa, thank you so much for all of your help coordinating this. This was really very, very appreciated. And Dean Leavenworth was the person who donated the wine for tonight. So thank you, Dean. Yes.
What?
And I am really, really lucky. But one of the things that we said when we were developing our mission, vision, and values was we wanted to become thought leaders in the education community. And over the pandemic, I was invited by Nolan Bushnell to co-author a book with him, which we completed, and it's now with the publishers and will come out this winter. And it really is about the future of education. A lot of ideas, but if I could sum it up in one capsule, it'd be that if we could get the top level game design people, working with the top level curriculum people, and put the curriculum that kids need to learn inside games that they want to play. Just before Nolan asked me to do this with him, I had gone to Washington DC to see the games that were being financed by the Department of Education for that year, and it was just before the pandemic, so the beginning of 2020. And they were lovely games, but for the most part, the kids were gonna know they were playing educational games. They were created by well-meaning academics. I consider myself one of those, so it's not an insult. But they weren't game design people. And so what Nolan and I are working on with a lot of other people is to try and motivate that part of the education community and get that set up.
The Zoom has a question. Could you tell us more about the makerspace?
Oh, yes, so in Boyle Heights, one of the things we want to do is put a 2,000 square foot makerspace together so that the community can use it. We will use it for professional development and for when we bring the kids in for field trips, but it'll also be available to the local community. And there are other organizations like Will I Am has an organization, I Am Angel, that's in Boyle Heights, and they were looking for a space where they could do their robotics program. And so the idea is if we have this building that we can bring other like-minded organizations together to work with us and help cover the mortgage and keep the building active.
Yeah.
Yes.
First of all, I want to commend you on, I'm really interested in systems change in the last 5 or 10 years. I love the way you're breaking down silos, collaborating with like-minded people to really get that kind of collaborative spirit going. I love that aspect of all of this. I'm curious about 2 things in particular, all my other questions I'll ask you offline. But how many children do you think the foundation serves per year? And in that service, is it like continuous? Is it a one-time experience? Or are we talking about, over an extended curriculum? So kind of the per capita impact on this, the metrics on that. I would love to know a lot more about metrics, but I won't do that here. And then Brent knows like the big, huge tree huggers. So how much still are you engaged and committed to the component that has to do with repurposing discarded materials and salvaging waste? Because that is like kind of thing.
I am also a tree hugger. I
Yeah,
grew
so
up on
are
a
you still
farm.
like super committed to that, and how does that look now? So you can pick and choose what you want to answer.
Yeah, well, really all of the above. Some of the things we do are one-time events with the kids, but what we like to do are the ongoing programs. Like what we've done in Hawthorne and Linwood are train the educators, like work with the teachers. And we meet with a lot of resistance in the conceptual stage. Like a principal will say, "I'm bringing you in," and here's the and we have such a great turnaround with that. With teachers who, and one group that was right at the end of their summer break, and there was a guy sitting there at the beginning of it, and he came over to me at lunch and he said, "I haven't had this much fun since middle school. Like I was dreading coming back and leaving the beach and getting back to work." And we have the same thing with kids. Although the kids don't come in all they're excited. They come in ready to go but we work with a lot of schools ongoing. And now what we're trying to do is engage with a university where we can do some research, like a little deeper research in the schools that we work with throughout the year. So
what are we talking about? How big is the population you're serving?
Yeah, per year,
I'm going to add to that just a little bit. Think of us as having kind of 4 core tent poles. There's the upcycled waste, right? As of 4 years ago, 570 tons of waste diverted from landfills. And so we've got that in half the schools of LA. Half the schools of LA are doing that program. Then there's the physical. So those are the consumable materials that go into a project, you don't get them back. Then there's the physical tools, the makerspace. And so this is stuff that once I'm done using it, then Leah's going to get to use it, and Liz is going to get to use it. So those, continue to stay at the school. So you've got the consumable materials, the reusable tools, the training of the teachers. What do I do with all this stuff? Now that I've got the program. And then events, so an inventor's challenge, challenging the kids to make new inventions, their own carnivals, which is sort of like a replacement for the science fair, just more fun, kids making their own games so they can throw their own carnival. And so each one of those, has a different type of impact, is impacting kids a different way. I think as of 4 years ago, we were over 1 million kids been through the program. And what we've got in LA is a model that can work in other cities. And so once you start to warehouse the clean waste, the rest of the programs and a lot of the work that the team has done to digitize that, get it built into a learning management system is stuff that we could put in every city in America. And so the possibility here, the leverage on the time and all of the work that's gone into this for a decade is something that we can start to really scale out all over the place with LA as the test lab.
And is a lot of this like after school stuff as well?
No, it's in school and after school and summer camps. Right. And also, one of our board members is with the American Chamber in Beijing, so the American Chamber in China. And we are working together on a platform to try and put the trash for teaching section of what we do into any manufacturing center around the world. Because there are schools, and here, the environmentalist in me loves what we do, but also the educator, because if you give kids a robotics package that has the instructions in it, they'll have fun putting it together and following the instructions. But if you give them random materials and some Arduinos or Raspberry Pi and ask them to make a robot, they become problem solvers, critical thinkers, and those are the skills that are going to stay with them, because the robots are going to do the follow the instruction stuff in the future.
I just have, I'm involved with an organization that supports STEAM school in South LA, and they have one of their programs, and they refer to it as a STEAM lab, it's a STEM lab, and it's part of their curriculum.
Right.
And my question to you is, and Leah's a very good friend, and she asked you this before, but I think it's everybody's. How many schools in LA are you in where there are actual these STEAM labs?
Yeah, well, there are over
STEM
200. There are over 200 of those STEAM labs now in LA, and we're now working with the woman who runs that program for all of LAUSD, and we designed a version that can be in every classroom in post-COVID reality. So it's just at the back of the classroom, and we have our first school that ordered 6 for all of their middle school classrooms.
And the school uses it's part of their
curriculum.
Their curriculum,
yeah.
That's the same.
Right, because what we do in a professional development is try to get teachers to move from lecture style to learning by doing. And so putting it into every classroom where it can be used for every, and where Celeste works at Carlos Nino's, they have a little atelier in every classroom where they use our material. And it's, that was the first school I toured when I took over the job. And it's really, they use it in literature, they use it in math, in every class they use the project-based learning.
Listening to the makerspace, the repurposing, how about if we send the dishes from tonight? We got forks, we got.
No,
right?
The only thing we can't take is anything that's had food on it. It has to be,
But the unused ones, for sure.
Yes, the
Yeah.
unused, yes.
All right, okay, well, it was a thought.
Ourselves.
Nice try, Liz.
I was
Thanks.
just going to mention, I really like the location of that, because what it's also close to is not only the corporate headquarters, but it's also close to the train station. So it gives the ability for people from across California to go to Union Station, a quick transit over to this new place. Because I think that professional learning is kind of this key part of having educators be really excited about it. And then I just have to commend you publicly, is that we've worked with Two Bit Circus as a part of a $6 million STEM grant, which we just got renewed, to support underrepresented populations going into science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And once we started using you guys at Oxford College, I know other departments have started as well. So we have lots of plans as to how the community utilize it. So it's not just K-12, it's looking at higher education as well. And I think the most meaningful part of it is how educators can think of learning differently and learning by doing. And that's really important as the world around us changes so quickly.
Are you doing longitudinal research about student outcomes, or is that part of the partner with academics?
Yeah, that's part of what we'd like to show. And it is a really great question because our work in Linwood is where I'd really like to do the longitudinal study. They were so reluctant in the beginning, and the superintendent of the district brought us in. And we did the first professional development 3 weeks before the pandemic. And the principal of the middle school, who wanted nothing to do with it, we convinced him finally to come and just spend an hour, just watch for an hour. And he came and spent the hour and said, I was wrong, I'm so sorry. He saw his teachers engaged, laughing, working together, and collaborating the way the teachers had never collaborated. Because that's the other thing in schools, everybody's in little silos. We're trying to get them to bridge those silos. And so we really would like to do some longitudinal study in Linwood. We're able to go back in and start working.
We've got a great resource of UCLA that is on board, excited to do it. We just need to get the grant to do it. So why don't we close now and basically say that we would love to activate every single one of you to think about partners and friends and folks that care about education, learning, inspired, fun, and we would love to hear from you tonight. Another day, as you think of people, you're in the shower or whatever. Don't hesitate to reach out to us. We would love to hear your suggestions. Liz.
Don't
Please.
it seems to me that there's some love notes.
Yeah.
Right? If anyone there are love notes here to the Circuit Foundation. So take your love note.
Done.
Thank you.
All right, and the bar's still open.
And we have desserts and we have tons of food.
Thank you for listening. Thank you for listening.